So y'all, I've been wanting to tell this story for quite some time, but I was hesitant because of just, I don't know, what people would think, negative backlash, how it would affect members of my family. But I'm choosing to tell it because it serves as a cautionary tale for parents out there. And it also further substantiates why we need, open-mindedness in parenting, as well as more safe spaces for, adolescent and teenage and just LGBTQIAPRXZ youth as a whole. But the first time I had sex with a man, I was 14 years old. And when I say a man, I don't mean somebody who had the same genitalia as me. I mean, well, it was that too, but it was a man. This man had to have been 45 years old or older. All right, so that's one of my secrets. That's one of my truths. How did this happen? The internet. Simply put, the internet. Y'all remember the old dial-up AOL days? Well, in Miami, they had Miami M for M, man for man, the chat rooms. And, some people call it fast, being grown, however you want to word it. I was doing what teenagers do, when they're coming of age sexually. The difference between me and the rest of my friends is my homeboys and friends from around the block. They were playing hide and go get it with Jenny from around the corner. They had their girlfriends in school. They had, the girl from summer camp, the girl they met at the mall. They had all of these various different socially acceptable outlets to explore sexuality because they were straight. You know what I'm saying? A 14-year-old boy walking down the street holding hands with his 14-year-old girlfriend, that was acceptable. Going to the movies with your, 15-year-old girlfriend and you're a 16-year-old boy, that was acceptable. Back in the mid to late 90s, there was no sexual outlet for a young kid coming of age trying to figure things out. I knew I liked boys. I couldn't go to my family about liking boys. I could not go to my friends because, from the time I was in kindergarten to present day, the messages, the signals all pointed in the direction that being gay is wrong and the worst thing that you can do is be a faggot or a sissy. It's embarrassing, it's shameful. And at 14 years old, you do not have the tools, you're not equipped with the skills to be able to combat your friends calling you a sissy or calling you a gay or outcasting you from the group. So while all of my friends were doing typical teenager shit, fingering their girlfriend on the bus, kissing in the movies, going behind the school having sex, skipping school having sex, on senior skip day skipping school and having sex, doing all the typical teenage stuff, I was in the chat room. And I don't remember everything leading up to it, but I do remember this. I spent a lot of time in the chat rooms, and this one particular day, I was talking to this gentleman, and at the time I told him I was 17. In hindsight, that doesn't make things much better. On his behalf, I was still underaged, but nevertheless, the story goes like this. Somehow or another, we agreed that we would meet at a park that was right up the street from my house. Let me tell you how childish I was. I rollerbladed to the park. I put my rollerblades on, I go to the park. This older white man in a black Corvette pulls up and we start talking in the parking lot. And he's like, well, You know, do you want to go to this hotel right around the corner? I was nervous as hell, and I knew that getting in a car with a stranger was wrong. But I did it anyway. And I'll never forget, this was the first time I heard the word disbarred. And that's why the word disbarred will always carry a special meaning in my life. This gentleman was a lawyer. And I remember him saying something to me along the lines of, are you a cop? Are you working with the cops? Because, you know, I can be disbarred for this. Oh, I wanted to mess around in the car. He wanted to go to a hotel, and I was hesitant about going. And he said, you know, I'd rather go somewhere private because I can be disbarred for this. And so we end up going to this motel, you know, the kind that you go in and be like, I'm finna pay $30. I just need it for an hour and 15 minutes, one of those type of places. And, you know, needless to say, we go in and, you know, things transpire. And, you know, it was weird. You know, on one token, I enjoyed it. You know, it was like, wow, I just had a sexual experience with the same sex. Like, this is what this is like, you know. So it was new, it was exploratory, it was interesting on one token. On the other, it felt wrong. And when it was over, I felt gross. And I was like, because here's this old white man, and to be honest, by even my 14-year-old standards at that time, I was not really attracted to him. I think I was more attracted to the thought of what is it like for a man and a man to be intimate. That's what I was more intrigued with than it was this man. Like, I remember when he took his clothes off and stuff, it just was, you know, I'll spare the details. That doesn't matter. But nevertheless, the first time I had sex with a man, I was 14 years old, and this man was every bit of, I mean, I say 45 or older, but this man probably was like 53 years old, and he was an attorney. I still remember his AOL screen name to this day, and I'll keep that to myself. But I tell this story to say this. My parents had no idea where I was at. They had no idea what I was doing. That story could have ended so many ways. It could have ended tragically. It could have ended with me being abducted. It could have ended with me contracting some sort of disease that I could not cure, simply because at 14, I just didn't have it. I didn't have the skill set. I did not have the knowledge. You know, granted, wasn't nobody having no intercourse at that time. I hope not. But if that man wanted to, you know, stick his penis in me with no protection on at 14 years old and give me some sort of disease, it's very likely that that could have happened, because I was so inexperienced and he was so much older that had he told me to lay there and do it, I probably would have. Or had I not wanted to do it and he got forceful, because he was so much older, I probably would have just surrendered and allowed him to have his way with me. Moral of the story, there are two. We're talking the late 90s, and this was just some old basic chat room dial-up, no cell phone at that time. It was like, meet me at this place at 2:30, and you just sit there and wait till said person arrives. How many of y'all kids have cell phones and 4 or 5 different social media platforms right now that they are able to have contact with the outside world, you know, predators, so on and so forth, and you have no earthly idea what's going on? So that's cautionary tale number 1. Like, listen, I was the perfect child. My mother's probably flipping in her grave right now. She found out this story, although it happened at my dad and my stepmom's house. Nevertheless, Completely unaware. My parents are probably flabbergasted right now to hear this story. So that's part one. But part two of it all, and the greater story, is for my development, both, sexually and just as a preteen. What took place on that day was so far advanced of where I should have been. In a perfect world, while my neighbors, my friends, my middle school friends, and the kids I rode bikes with up and down the street, while they were playing hide and go get it with the little girls, in a perfect utopian society, I would have been playing hide and go get it with some little boy. You know what I'm saying? But we did then, and we still now live in a world where, it's just not widely accepted, or everybody tries to close their eyes to the fact that they've got a gay child or a child that they think is gay. And I'm going to go put little John in football in hopes that it will make what I sense in the back of my mind dissipate, and hopefully he's just going through a phase. Yeah, right. In a perfect world, I would have had the same outlets that all of my friends did. And, when deciding if I was going to tell this story or not, I had to deal with, a level of shame that I thought would be conferred upon me. Then I had to realize I was 14 years old. There is nothing at 34 I should be ashamed of that I did at 14. Okay, so that also helped me in telling this story. But needless to say, I think that I did what I did because I had no other outlet, and because there was no one for me to talk to, and no one for me to be able to express myself with sexually. I was taken advantage of by a middle-aged man. Now, do I feel molested? Do I feel raped? Do I feel like something happened to me that I couldn't control? Do I even feel like something happened to me that should not have happened? No, I don't. I never walked through life feeling like, oh God, I was molested by a 40-something-year-old man. Because as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't. It was a voluntary act, and for what it's worth, I enjoyed it, and to a certain degree, it was fundamental to my growth. However, as an adult, just with my adult hat on from one adult to another, yes, that man took advantage of a young, naive kid. And even though I thought I was doing him, me, and us a favor by lying up and saying I was 17, I was actually 14. And yet he was still dead as wrong, because 17 was not legal age for his old fart ass to be laying on top of me huffing and puffing and putting his mouth in places I didn't even know I had. Nevertheless, I was 14 years old the first time I had sex with a man. How old were you when you had your first experience, hetero or gay? One thing I will say is that the age by which I experimented with that man is pretty consistent with the age that everybody around me was having sex. I mean, I got some friends who were having sex at 12 and 13, but the lion's share of my friends started having sex between the ages of 14 and 16 years old. I mean, where I come from, that kind of was the average age, freshman year. A lot of people started in 8th grade, and then the lion's share of people, freshman and sophomore year of high school, is when a lot of people really got active into it. Tell me about your first time. Tell me, how old were you? And parents, number one, you can't monitor what your children are doing every hour of the day, but watch that social media. And moreover, and I know you were raised and it's wrong and you don't want a gay child, but here's the thing. Whether you want it or not, if your child is 14, the way I was, it ain't even about your wants and desires at this point. If your child is gay, they gay. and they've been gay for a while. So I would encourage you to sit down with your spouse or go to counseling or email me or write whoever the fuck you need to write to get over it if that's a hang up for you, and to create a safe, healthy environment for your child before they run out and do what I did, because my story could have ended a lot of ways. And thankfully, you know, I was covered that day and the subsequent days that I met other men in the park, because I could not play with Jimmy after dark. Look how I made that rhyme. So I just wanted to leave that on y'all. That was my story. I'd be curious to hear yours. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss. See you in the comments. And for those of you who are new to my channel, be sure to like or subscribe. And I'll call you later. Bye.